morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, is that your mic?
I think so.
Okay, yeah, it's working.
Okay. How are you this morning,
Sheriff
Donna?
Derek Palmer. Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well this morning. Just off to a good start. Sunny morning.
It's
Everything's
beautiful
looking well
outside,
outside.
isn't it?
Yeah. We got a little piece of summertime weather, I guess, for the winter today, or close to winter. I don't guess it's technically winter yet.
Not
We'll be in a few days.
quite. Yeah. Like what, the 21st or something?
Yeah,
like that?
I think it's December 21st, first day of winter. But, we've got a lot going on in Cherokee County. There's a lot been happening in the last few weeks. And one of the things that everybody keeps talking about is the drug arrest that we've done in the last few weeks. And we just want to continue to keep those coming and keep those coming into the public. And a lot of people don't understand this. I want to talk about this just a little bit before we get started. I talked about it a little bit on TV4 this morning. I did my TV spot at 9 o'clock this morning. Myself and Greg talked about this some. But, when it comes to fighting drugs and it comes to drug arrest, I think one of the things that has hurt law enforcement more than anything is these television shows that are out there. You see a 30-minute show or an hour-long show where you have a murder happen, you have a drug activity going on, and in 30 minutes or an hour, they identify the people, they solve the crime, they kick their door in, execute a search warrant, prosecute it through court, and they're sent to prison,
And it doesn't happen that fast.
It certainly doesn't. And a lot of times it takes a while to put these kind of cases together, especially drug cases. And the thing we like to let the community understand is that a lot of the times that when you have problems in your neighborhood or things happening, we don't know everything going on out there, but a lot of these people, we do know what's happening. We do know what's going on. And but just knowing something is going on is not enough. Mm-hmm. We can't arrest people just because we know it and just because we know it's happening. We have to spend enough time to do an investigation, to put cases together, to make sure things stick in court. Mm-hmm. We have to look at it from a defense attorney's point of view. What kind of questions is he going to ask? What's he going to do to try to beat this charge? Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that our investigative techniques are done in such a way to where we can anticipate going to trial and anticipate convicting this in court and putting it in front of 12 people and getting a guilty verdict. Right. So that takes time. That takes time putting stuff together. And sometimes it could take days, sometimes it could take weeks, sometimes it could take months, and sometimes even years to get stuff together. Mm-hmm. So I said all that to say this, that I know there's a lot of other issues out there. There's a lot of drug houses, a lot of drug activity going on out there. And systematically, we're going to hit these things one by one and try to get to all this stuff. But it just takes time to get there. So I don't want people to get frustrated and think, well, that's great. They did a lot of good work up here. When are you going to fix my problem? When are you going to come to my place here and do something about it? We're all over the county. We're different neighborhoods, different places. We're investigating different things, and some of it may take a little bit of time to come to fruition, but we'll eventually get there. But one thing that we want to let the citizens understand is we realize, and I had a meeting with my narcotics guys this past week and my investigative unit. We understand and realize that these things take time. It takes a lot of time to put this stuff together. But in the meantime, our community still has a problem. Our neighbors who are calling in about these things, they still have a problem next door. So what I've tried to get my guys to understand, and I think they're doing a very good job at it, they're on board with this, and they're making some changes to the way they're doing some stuff over there, is that if you're looking at an investigation that's going to take months to do, or it's going to take a year to wrap together, we can identify those type of investigations pretty quick about this is going to be lengthy, this is going to take a while. But be mindful that the neighbors still have a problem. Mm-hmm. They still have a drug dealer living next door. So we're trying to encourage them and get to a place where when you get past a certain point in the investigation where the investigation can take off by itself, then back up and look at these other things you can go in to do a search warrant, to go in and search house. You may not get but just a little bit of drugs. You may not get but just a handful of something. But if that other investigation can continue, go ahead and do the search warrant. Go ahead and go in and try to solve the neighbor's problem that's happening up there. And so we're going to try to change our mindset just a little bit about this to understand there is a need to spend months. There is a need to spend a long time to investigate. There is a need to send some of this stuff to federal court, which could take years to get there. But we still got to be attentive to our citizens. We still have to fix the problems for our citizens. So we're just changing our operation a little bit, the way we're doing things, so maybe people can see a little bit quicker response to some of the problems that are out there. And so maybe that'll help some of the people in these neighborhoods and help some of the people around that has concerns about neighbors and about things that's happening. But on that same token, I want to remind people, if you have a problem in your neighborhood, if you have some activity next door that's questionable, and you're kind of weighing in the balance whether to call, should I call, shouldn't I call, kind of thing, go ahead and call.
Right.
Go ahead and call and report those things to the sheriff's office and let us be investigating those, because your piece of information may be the final piece of the puzzle. It may be the final piece that we need to wrap everything together to get it all up there. I know when I worked at the task force years ago, we'd be having search warrants. And one of the things that we do that our guys now are doing also is we would do search warrants, go ahead and be working on them. If I knew Donna was dealing dope over here, but I didn't have enough to go to her house, I'd go ahead and start a search warrant. And I'd go ahead and do the original paragraphs and everything on it. Then when I get a piece of information about Donna, I'd add it to that search warrant until I got enough that I felt like I could go to a magistrate and get, or a district court judge or whoever I needed to, and get that search warrant signed to go search. And
People don't really realize how you've got to have some sort of proof
right
to put in front of a judge to get that search warrant.
And I equate it like this, and so people understand kind of, because the only way you can really understand is to reverse it, to put yourself in their position. So how, for most people, how would you like it if your neighbor just called the sheriff's office and said, hey, you're doing drugs, whoever's out there listening, you're the person here, that you're doing drugs and you need to go arrest them. And just out of the blue one day, you're sitting watching television, the sheriff's office, without no proof, without nothing, just kicks your door in and comes in and throws everybody on the ground at gunpoint. You'd be very upset, wouldn't you, if you were innocent and hadn't done anything. So before we do that, before we violate people's rights, before we try to go in and do things to intrude in people's homes and take their civil liberties away from them, we want to make sure that we have enough evidence that things are done correctly, because we don't need to be going in and just kicking people's doors in because somebody just said something about them. So it does take time to put all that information together. But to go back to what I was saying, there'd be lots of times as we're adding that information to the search warrant. I know several different occasions where I would have a search warrant ready to go, but it just wasn't quite there yet. There was just something missing. And I would be looking at that going, okay, if I go right now, this could get squashed in court. There's just not enough there. But out of the blue, a neighbor would call, or a family member would call, or a friend would call and say, hey, I just want to report this. This is going on. I saw this vehicle with this tag number, or I saw a deal go down last night, or I know for a fact there's stuff in there right now. That could be the final piece to put in that search warrant to make a determination whether we can get it signed or whether we can't get it signed to go in there. So report. If there's anything you feel like you need to report, go ahead and report it and let us follow up on that. One question I do want to get to real quick before we go on, because someone called into the radio station and it was a caller that wanted to know, is there some phone number in Cherokee County that a citizen may call and get help if a person has fallen and cannot get up, and if the husband is not able to help them get up? In other words, a service that will help this person that won't be a cost, a large cost. It says an arm and a leg here, but it won't cost a lot to get them to come out and get the person on the floor. This is a situation that we run into a lot. Our 911 center gets a lot of calls for service of people, especially elderly people who have fallen, who can't get up. One of the reasons, and I'm going to tell you who to call in just a second, but one of the reasons why we don't, as law enforcement, go out and pick people up and help them get up is because we don't know what might be broken.
Right.
They could have a broken hip or a broken leg or a broken arm or even a back or neck, and we don't want to be moving people around and standing people up and things of that nature that could potentially paralyze them or kill them.
Right.
And so that's why law enforcement don't come out and do that. But what we do encourage people to do is go ahead and call 911 or call 835-3144. That's the non-emergency number at dispatch, and let the dispatcher know that you have someone that's fallen or fallen yourself and can't get up, and they will dispatch out either the fire department or the EMS. Somebody that has some medical training and does that for a living that will come out and help people get up and help them get back on their feet. So if you're in a situation where you're an elderly person, someone's fallen and can't get up, go ahead and call 911 or call the number again is 835-3144. And that's also to our dispatch center. It's the non-emergency line for dispatch. So if you'll call one of those two numbers, they'll get you some help out there and help you get them up.
And if you're the person who's fallen and you can't remember anything, you definitely need to call 911.
Right.
Okay.
One thing I do encourage too, also, if you're living alone and you're in one of these situations where you're elderly and you live alone, please invest, or if you have a family member that does that lives alone, invest in one of the Life Alert bracelets or necklaces that could potentially save someone's life. So. If you have a elderly parent or a family member that lives alone, help invest in that so they can have that service. And it's just a simple mash of a button. You don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to call anybody or remember numbers. All you have to do, if you're on the floor and you can't get up, all you have to do is mash that button on your wrist or mash that button on your necklace, and it'll send somebody to your house. So that's a good investment for people that live out there by themselves. Donna, one other thing I want to mention too is I meant to mention this to the first and I forgot, is that we have had a wonderful weekend this weekend. This was Christmas parades. We had the Christmas, and by the way, for y'all that may not attend church at Valleytown, we had a service yesterday, a wonderful service, and Miss Donna sang for us yesterday, and she has a lovely voice. So if you like to hear some good singing,
sweet.
come out to Valleytown and listen to Donna sing. And if she's not singing that Sunday and you want to hear her sing, just let me know and I'll make sure that she sings for you. But this weekend, it was the Christmas parade weekend, and well, I want to tell you, we had a good time. We just had a wonderful weather, good things that were going on. Murphy was packed from one end of town to the other. Andrews Saturday night was packed also. There was a lot of people out, and so we were able to throw out some candy and talk to the kids and be a part of that parade. And
They must have thrown out a whole lot of candy, because I'm telling you, I looked high and low for the Starlight Mints.
Right.
And I could not find those things.
At Walmart.
Everybody was sold out.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something too, and I'm not complaining, because we do what we need to do to help the citizens, but I just want the people out there at these parades to know this, is that, that people sometimes complain because they don't get much candy, or you're at the end of the parade and you're out of candy and things of that nature. But guys, I'm going to tell you, when you have several thousand people show up for a parade, it takes a few $100s to get candy out there.
Does.
And so even when you spend a couple $100s on just candy bars and hard candy, that don't last long when you start throwing it out by the handfuls.
That's
so.
right.
Just people, just be mindful of that, that there's a lot of people out there. And at the end of the parade, we were scratching the bottom of the barrel trying to get another handful out of it. So, but I think it worked out pretty well for us. We made it all the way through, the Murphy parade down the Andrews parade we just ran out at the very end of it. I mean, you could see the finish line in sight when we ran out. So, people be mindful of that, because sometimes, you do run across the occasional person that complains that you didn't throw them candy, or there wasn't enough, or something of that nature. But hopefully with everybody out there, with all the floats and the fire trucks and the police and everybody, hopefully everybody got some candy for the parade, and all the kids got some candy. And one of the big things for the parade that was, I've got a lot of comments on, a lot of positive comments on, was our patrol cars that we put in the parade. We had my car and that I'm currently driving, and we had a Ford Explorer that we just purchased, and a Ford Interceptor that we had in the Murphy parade. They couldn't make it to the Andrews parade because they arrested somebody right before the parade and couldn't go in it. But we had the Explorer in my car in the Andrews parade. But on the cars, we had posted posters on the car that says "Paid for by your local drug dealer." And what a lot of people don't realize about that, and we wanted to get that word out there, is that in North Carolina, there's a couple of ways that local drug dealers pay for our cars and pay for other equipment. And because people ask, well, who's the drug dealer that paid for this one? But what happens is there's two different ways. One is through asset seizures. When we go through homes that are selling drugs and they're distributing drugs, if there are vehicles used in that distribution, or there's other equipment or things that are used, we can actually seize that equipment, and the court can order it turned over to the sheriff's office for either use or sale. So we can sell that equipment and get the proceeds from that equipment to use for the furtherance of the sheriff's office. Also, in North Carolina, there is also a drug tax in North Carolina. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you're a drug dealer in North Carolina, you're supposed to go to Raleigh and buy a drug stamp for the drugs that you sell and pay taxes on your drugs. And there is actually a drug tax in North Carolina. So, and believe it or not, some people do that. Some people get their drug stamp on their drugs. But for those that don't, which is 99.9% of the people out there selling drugs, for the ones that don't get their drug stamp and pay taxes on their drugs, when we catch people with a quantity of drugs, we can actually tax that through the IRS. And the IRS can come back and tax them for their drug possession. And if we can prove they've sold a certain amount of drugs or been in possession for drugs, the IRS can tax you on that. When the IRS collects those taxes, then that money is turned back over to the sheriff's office for us to use to buy things with.
Cool.
So that's how your local drug dealer pays for vehicles and pays for the other stuff. So a lot of people don't realize that process and how it works. But that the drug taxes and the asset forfeitures is how that comes about, to pay for those vehicles. And if they're good vehicles with no liens on them, we can actually just keep those vehicles and use them. Of course, all that has to come by court order. We can't just take what we want. The court has to order that to be turned over to the sheriff's office. But I got a lot of good comments about the signs that were on the cars. A lot of people are happy with what they're seeing and what we're doing. And it's good to know that for a lot of our vehicles, we're trying to get up to par and trying to get our fleet going. A lot of those vehicles are purchased through these drug forfeitures and through these drug taxes instead of having to pay county tax dollars to buy these drugs with, or buy these cars with. I'm sorry. And so that's good to know that it's easing the burden on the taxpayer some by using that
And
money.
a lot of drug dealers have really cool vehicles.
They do.
too. Yeah.
When I worked the Drug Task Force in Hayesville, I actually seized a Camaro one time, or a Trans Am one. I think it might have been Trans Am. And I was so happy. I thought, I'm going to get this turned over, and that's what I'm going to drive after we get done. And went through court. The judge ordered it turned over to us for our use. We could use it or sell it or whatever we wanted. I drove that car for like a week. And after rolling in and out of that car, and you sat almost on the ground on those cars. And after having to climb in and out of that car and roll around that car for a week, I decided I didn't want to drive that anymore. So I think we wound up selling it and then buying something else with the money. But yeah, you can. They have cool cars, and you can drive those cars if they're turned over by the court. So those are just some ways that we're trying to be frugal with our money and trying to do these things. To try to ease the burden on the taxpayer a little bit in Cherokee County. One interesting thing about this, I wasn't planning on going here, but I will, that when I was elected and took over the sheriff's office, the average mileage on a patrol car on our patrol fleet was 230,000 miles a car.
Wow.
And so, needless to say, the cars were ragged out and worn out and dangerous at that point. So, we have spent this whole first year using drug tax money and asset forfeiture money and county money. Also, the commissioners have given us some money to buy some cars with. We've been trying to bring our patrol cars up to our fleet up to par, and we have done that. And we've almost there. We've got a few more cars we need to replace, but we're almost there. And once we get those replaced, then we're looking at moving into investigations and helping with investigations administration on their vehicles. So it's just a never-ending cycle. And once you get to the end of it, your first cars that you purchased are wore out, and it's starting that process all over again. So when our officers are out here and they're putting anywhere from 200, 300, sometimes 400 miles a night on a car, it doesn't take long to put 100,000 miles or 200,000 miles on a car. So that's what we keep working on, trying to get this done. One other thing that I want to talk about is when we talk about budgets and we talk about these different things, is that we're changing our positions a little bit at the sheriff's office. We're moving away from the patrol lieutenant position. That is a position that's been historically there in the past. The sheriff's office, myself and the chief have discussed this. We've talked about it. We are basically going to take over those duties of maintaining our patrol officers, and we're going to try to change that into more of a professional standards position. We're wanting to bring our office up to a more professional office, to a more training, as far as training standards, and as far as getting to a place where we're more professional, and we're more professional in our look, we're more professional in our actions, more professional in our training. So we're wanting to use this position to be a place where we can get that training done and get those things done and get us up to where we want to be. But speaking of being more professional, and speaking of trying to bring our fleets up to where they need to be, and our people up to where they need to be, and being professional in our actions and our training, it brings me to a next section that I want to just mention. We're not going to talk about it a lot today, but just mention. It's not long. It's probably about another couple months till we start into our new budget cycle. New budget is in June and July, but we have to start working on that January, February, March.
Right.
We have to start working on that new budget. So this is what I want the community to hear and what I want you to be thinking about. You got to answer the question, and this is the question I want you to answer. Are you happy with the way the sheriff's office is doing things and being reactive to what's out there? Or do you want to see us grow and be more professional and do things even better than we're doing it now? That's the question you need to ask. And if your answer is, I would like to see you continue to grow and be more professional and do a better job and be proactive into stopping some of this crime before it happens, that takes money. It takes resources for that to happen. So if the citizens' attitude is, we want you to be proactive, we want you to stop BNEs before they happen, we want you to keep drugs from getting here, we don't want you just to find it, we want you to stop it before it gets here, we want you to curb some of this crime before it happens, then those kind of things are going to take resources and they're going to take money. We can accomplish it. We can't stop everything, but we can be proactive and we can stop a lot of things before it ever happens. But we've got to have the attitude of it's going to take money to do it, it's going to take resources to do it, and it's going to take a sacrifice to get this done. Now, if people are happy with the things with the way they are, and just if you have a B&E, try to solve it. And if they're happy with my car got stolen, see if you can find it. If they're happy with drugs are in the area, just see if you can find out who's doing it. If people are happy with that, then we can continue the way we're going. But the community is going to dictate. They're going to dictate whether we increase budgets, whether we increase personnel, whether we increase these things, or whether we stay the way we are. And the way I look at this thing is there's all kinds of stuff I want to do. I want to do all these big things and all these great things, but I work for the community. I work for the people. So what the people want is what we're going to do and how we're going to progress in this. So if you're one of the people that wants to be proactive, wants to see this stuff grow, wants to see us do a better job, wants us to keep getting more professional and better, then you need to be vocal about that with me. You need to be vocal about that with the commission board. You need to be vocal about that with the county manager. You need to be vocal about that with those that make the decisions so that we know that's what the public wants,
right.
So that we know that's what people want. And then vice versa. If people's happy with what way things are and say, well, you're big enough, you've grown enough, we're happy with what we're seeing, we don't need anything else right now, you need to be vocal about that too. So we know where we are and we know where we're at with this and what the people want. So we just want to move and progress and grow, but we want to do it at the pace that the community's comfortable with and at a pace that people's happy with. So that's kind of what we want to be and where we want to be at this point. So are we about out of time, or we got a few more minutes?
You got like 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, one thing I do want to say real quick, I don't know if you noticed this or not. Greg didn't say anything about it on the radio this morning, but I'm wearing a Fitbit. I don't know if anybody knows about these things or what they are. But I actually borrowed this one. This one's not mine. My wife wears one. But I realized that I'm going to have to lose some weight. So this little thing, you wear it on your wrist. It's like a watch, and it reminds you that you need to walk. It reminds you need to exercise. It reminds you that you need to watch what you eat and all these kind of different things. So it's kind of like having somebody looking over your shoulder all the time and telling you what you need to do. But I think, as one of the things about being more professional and one of the things about getting our office up to par is we need to be physically fit. We need to try to get in shape. We need to try to be looking professional, acting professional, but being out there where we're not overweight, we're not out here doing things that's dangerous to our health and dangerous to the community. So those are all things that we're trying to implement and try to get going with the sheriff's office. And as we continue to grow and continue to get more professional, hopefully that will reflect out in the way we look, the way we act, the way we feel.
Yeah, because you won't want somebody, chasing down a criminal and going into cardiac arrest.
Right.
Exactly.
Then you're having to deal with the officer and the criminal you're chasing.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
But we're trying to, like I say, our goal is to get more professional. Our goal is to try to increase the image of the office, try to curb some of this crime, fight some of this crime, solve crime, and do all the things that we need to do. So from everything I'm hearing, it seems like the community's happy. It seems like that people are happy with what they see out of the sheriff's office, and we don't want to back up. I don't feel like we ever sit still. I think we either go forward or we go backward. So we just want to continue going forward.
Awesome.
All right. You have a great day.
You too. Thank you.